friendly, small and attractive. And by that attractive I mean not pretty but good to look at.
I think quaint and hospitable and preserved.
Hard work. Great place to be.
Well, it's one of the best little country towns in Western Australia, because I've travelled to all the others, you know, and the people are friendly. Oh, some larrikins amongst them.
Home forever. Best place to live. And place of opportunity.
I'd say it's a very friendly town.
Yeah, friendly would be a good word.
Wonderful historical town.
It's just a good place to, I think, to live. I wouldn't leave here.
Friendly, environmental stuff and heritage.
Yeah.
You have to narrow it down to 3 words.
York was a beautiful place.
Good place to live.
Happiness. Freedom.
Mixed.
I suppose the history, the location, and the climate is the thing that impresses me and about York.
A good place to live.
I'm glad I live here.
Naive.
Exciting.
Peaceful.
Well, one word I'd use is tribal, which would surprise most people. And when I say tribal, I'm not talking about Aborigines and white people. I'm talking about social groups, or really very extended family connections, which is associated with agriculture. Some of it goes back for a very long time, of course.
Pleasant town. I like the old buildings.
Unique.
Delightful.
Unlucky.
Scrappy.
Exceptional.
And great place to live. Well, that's more than that. It's too many.
Full of memories.
Oh, nice.
Yes, every time I go up to Mount Brown, which is the hill up here, and look down, and I think to myself, what a beautiful little place.
It's a good spot, put it that way.
3 words. Time stands still. Time stands still. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same culture, even the same way of thinking. I've come and gone. I come back, and the same attitudes, especially the separateness from the farmers and the townies. The resistance to new people is quite strong from the original inhabitants. And yeah, time has stood still. Time has stood still. But that's part of its reassuring quality.
The orange tree at the old station.
Why is that?
I don't know. It signifies York. It's a huge tree. I don't even know whether it's still alive. I think it is. Was. But yeah.
Probably it's wet ground when it's ploughed.
Nice. And mine's similar. I think the first rain, that smell, it's really different. Smells of, I don't know, probably just smells of wet earth, and it's a beautiful, wholesome sort of smell.
I suppose when Patterson's curse, that's that blue flower, came, it took over the district sort of thing, and that it used to make the place look beautiful. But of course now they've got it under control with sprays, and that gets rid of it mostly.
A flower and a weed called Cape Tulip. And that was rife back in those days. It's just about eliminated now. But that was a pest. But it used to have a nice flower, and you could pluck it out of the ground and it'd have the bulbs on the bottom and make a great weapon to throw at somebody.
I think of York and Marwick's Barn. And I think Marwick's Barn, and I think of Marwick's Barn and the Sandalwood Yard, primarily because they were both involved with sandalwood. And my wife and I taught on an Aboriginal mission where, to raise money for the kids, we used to go out cutting sandalwood. And the connection with the Western Desert Aboriginal people where we taught, and this town that we now call our own, or we call it home, that's a real connection for me.
Well, the flowers was everlastings. All up in the hills was just pink. And smell of everlastings was beautiful.
When I was a boy, that up there in the season was chock-a-block full of everlastings. It was just pink. You could stand here and look up there and the whole Mount Brown was pink. But then somebody in the council in those days, or the roads board, there was too much weeds up there, so they went and sprayed it all with Roundup. Killed the bloody lot.
Chimneys.
Chimneys?
Yeah, well, I had to look at the colonial architecture for my art teacher's studies, and there's lots of lovely chimneys in York.
Cecil Brunner rose, a little tiny pink rose, and I used to pick those roses when I was a child. I used to sneak up to my grandmother's house from school during lunchtime because it was just up over the railway line, and pick posies of flowers in her garden and sneak back again after lunch. So yeah, the Cecil Brunner rose is very much part of my memory of York, yeah.
That afternoon, hot summer smell of wheat in the air, that's extraordinary. I haven't ever smelt it anywhere else except here.
I suppose my fond memories was the time of the season when it came, when they were cutting hay, and the smell of cutting hay would waft through the valley, and you could drive out through and you could tell when people were into the cutting of hay, and it was a delight to call in and talk to some of the farmers to see them when they were cutting their hay, and that strong odour that used to fill the air in those days really always reminds me of my days inspecting rural roads out in the bush.
There was a big orchard where we used to go and get peaches and grapes and all sorts of fruit. Beautiful. And a river, like a little gully running through the orchard. Beautiful.
My thought is Mount Bakewell, who we can see from many miles away, and when we see it, I think that's York.
That's home. I'd probably have to almost agree with that. Freshly baked cakes makes me think of home, because my mother always cooked, and so do I.
It's the bush, I think. The road to York, the countryside, the changing countryside and the seasons. It's always, every year is very different with the seasons. It's quite exciting. Although you don't farm, you get involved in the excitement of opening rains, which we'll probably get tomorrow.
Moreton Bay fig tree that's now gone. It used to be in opposite the Castle Hotel, and they chopped it down for one reason or another. That reminds me, every time I see a Moreton Bay fig tree, it reminds me of that.
Up here in Peace Park, there's a big tree growing there, and during the war years I went to school in that the convent school there, and they had trenches running north and south and east and west, and after the war finished they filled those trenches in. So they got us kids to plant trees in the trench, and there's one big tree up there. I can't prove it, but I'm positive that's the tree that I planted. And now every time I go to, they have markets up there once a month, and every time I go there I have a look at that tree, and it, you know, I'm underneath, I'm proud of that tree because I think I planted it. way.
And, yeah.